So, my name is Jason Barney. I'm president of the Swanton Historical Society. I'm honored to have worked with Ron Kilburn and members of the Swanton Historical Society to bring this together. As you look around the room, it's going to be more about the people who were at the fire and have memories of the fire. Regardless of what we have prepped here for you, if you are willing to share any of your memories, actually, let me go into teacher mode for a second. Could you please raise your hands? How many of you were here in Swanton for the fire 50 years ago?
Wow.
So, we have quite a bit prepared, but I want to encourage any of you who have memories from 50 years ago to please think about speaking up and sharing those memories. We'd love to get them on film, and we'd love for you to share them with us. A couple of other things. I specifically want to thank Ron for everything that he's done for the Historical Society during his time. I also want to thank Bruce Spalding, because he's been running around getting a lot of people. And I think a particular thank you goes to the fire department today and the fire department then, first responders. This presentation is also about them and what they did that night. So thank you. And thanks, Reg, for helping us set this up. Not having enough space, I think, is a good problem to have. I also, real quick, I just want to thank some MVU students who are here too. I'm not going to introduce them, but as a teacher at MVU, it means a lot to me that some of them would be here tonight. So we're going to start off. There's some images of what Merchants Row used to look like, and we would like you to we want to take you through a little bit of history. Ron's going to describe a couple of our historical images. Then we're actually going to fall back on some of the presentations that the Historical Society has done in the past. When we do that, we think we are okay with the speakers, but it's going to be helpful to us if the room is pretty quiet. And we'd like to replay what some of the live broadcasts were on January 28th, 1970. It's part of the Historical Society collection, and we'd like to share that with you. Afterwards, there are a couple of clips from the presentations from the 30th anniversary and a couple of clips from the 40th anniversary of specific individuals that were involved that night that we would like you to hear from. Regardless, again, anything that we have prepared, the stories of anybody who remembers 50 years ago, they're going to be the most important part of the season. So, Ron, is there anything you want to mention before we start?
Thank you, Jason. The music, you heard the music. Some of you know what it is, you heard it before. But for those of you who don't remember, you were asked in the music to remember Merchants Row. So that's a good reason to bring you all together tonight to be with us, to tell us about your memories of Merchants Row. But we owe a tribute to Merrill Corbier and the Waymen for their song, When Embers Glowed on Merchants Row. And we do have some Corbiers here tonight with us, and we're proud of that. Thank you.
Rich, you want to give the lights a little bit more?
So, the music asks you if you will remember Merchants Row. But some of you won't be able to remember it because you may never have seen it in this condition. Believe me, these buildings are older than you are. Notice, though, in this particular picture, a few of the features in the background, of course, are the Taquahanga Club, which we lost in the fire of 1970. Notice also the Duke's residence, multiple residence building, which was also lost. And of course, everything in the image here was lost to fire in 1970. This is a special era in our history for those reasons, because of the history of the buildings that we had and lost. But we do have at least one there that wasn't lost, and that's the bank. The bank is still there. And the transportation, it was horse and buggy, and it was trolley. Okay? Now these folks are really proud in this particular building here, which was also lost to fire before Merchants Row was collectively put together in the previous picture. But unlike just a picture of a building, we have people here who wanted to be in the picture, and they're standing outside in the front, and they're pretty proud to be in the picture. This guy up here didn't make it downstairs, but he made it in the picture. Another vision of Merchants Row from a different point of view. This is from First Street, and it includes the Prouty Market building here. Next to it would have been the home of the Champlain Theater later on, but we have these two rows of buildings, and what's obvious from here is the separation between these two here, which you would hope, and they did then, would provide a perfect firewall. Transportation played a lot in when you recount Swanton's history. You got around on a horse and buggy, and in those days that was the only way to go. Now, at some point in the history of these buildings, this one here was lost, hence the arrow someone placed on the photograph. But in the background, there's the grain elevator. You can see that. Another version of the two sections of Merchants Row, the southern section and the northern section. And again, transportation. It looks like from this photograph, you had two choices on transportation. You walked there, or you went there in your horse and buggy. Now some of you today, I know when you go down to Merchants Row, the modern place that we visit all the time now, and some of you probably complained about not finding a place to park. Well, what if you'd had one of these? Do you think you could find a place to park it? And another image, this is from the southernmost section of Merchants Row, and this would have been the bachelor block at the time of the fire, right here. And the fire started next door in Moose Perra's used furniture shop. Now, if I say anything about the fire, which is not true, and I didn't get my history right, I sure hope somebody will correct me and let me know. You don't have to do it in public tonight, but let me know at some point. Notice the lack of a whole lot of traffic. There is no vehicular traffic, but there's two women walking down the street, and they are doing it the old-fashioned way, walking. Another image, and you may say, well, aren't these all the same? No, they're not, because if you can read the signs, you'll see that the businesses are different with each photograph I've shown. Some of the notable features, once again, that will come up in the discussion about the fire itself, was the protection that they all had because of this alleyway in between the two sections of Merchants Row. One thing about this picture that's different from the previous ones is that it's got a sidewalk. You haven't seen too many sidewalks in any pictures yet, have you? Now this one is a puzzle, and maybe some of you can answer the questions that are brought to mind by looking at the picture. Jason and I looked at this and we wondered, well, is this telephone? Is it telegraph? Is it electricity? What is it? And what is this right here? It looks like it's got a platform underneath it, either to sit on or to stand on or whatever. We don't know what this represents. We're not old enough. But we passed from the horse and buggy stage era to the automobile stage. There's one of the first ones right there, an open air vehicle, motor driven. And here's again from another perspective, from First Street looking down towards Merchants Row, Canada Street. Thank you, Sandy. Look at the buggies. Keep your eye on this particular building here. It's got all of the architectural decoration that goes with a concrete building or brick building. Somebody has painted it white, obviously, in this picture to make it a distinguishing building from the one next door to it. But they all have the same historic perspective, except for this one, which has a lot of extra decoration in terms of the structure of the building itself. But as we go forward, notice the changes in this building here in particular. Not yet, though. We're going back to the southern section of Merchants Row, but again to show that we progressed in the age of the automobiles, because these are quite a bit newer than the previous picture. Looking pretty nice, aren't they? And this is a view from the park, looking towards Merchants Row. And again, this masonry building is still standing with all of the ornamentation. And what's different about the pictures now? Oh, a few things. That looks like there might be a bus. Does that look like a bus? We had bus service from Swanton to St. Albans. The grain elevator is still there. And let's see, what else? Okay. Again, back in the other direction, looking back in this direction. There's that building I asked you to keep an eye on. It's still white, and it still has all the ornamentation. It still represents a piece of the northern section of Merchants Row. But there's something a little bit different about this picture that I thought I would point out to you in case you don't notice, but of course all of you will notice it. You got people who are waiting to get their horses watered. This person's number one. His horse is getting a drink from the water fountain for horses right there. And these guys right here are waiting to be next with their horse. So they didn't have to stop at a gas pump, they stopped at a water.
And the buildings all have awnings stuck out.
And they all have awnings stuck out. Thank you. Every single one of them. Ah, that keeps the sun off you, doesn't it? Now we're getting closer in time. We're inching our way closer to the time of the fire. This picture includes all of the buildings on Merchants Row. You've got the A&P, Atlantic and Pacific. You've got Candyland. You've got Pearls. Pearls was the last one to go in the fire at the end of the street, so to speak, before it jumped across. And this building still looks the same. But now it looks different. What happened to it? Did the whole building burn down and it was replaced by this one, which was more modern? Because a modern structure was more, shall we say, preferable to some folk? I don't know. But what a difference already. It's a void in the architecture of Merchants Row. But you will also notice, because this happened at a time when we were getting a little more modern. Look at this car. Does this look like one you might have had in high school? How many of you? Is that a Ford or Chevy or what? No? Okay. Now this is a colored postcard, and again, it shows the length of Merchants Row from south to north. The new white building really stands out, even though it's not colored like the rest. And you've got Swanton Rexall Drugs, and you've got Pearl's Department Store. And what have you got that would really come in handy if we had a fire down there? You got a fire hydrant right here. Somebody had great foresight, working for the village, I'm sure, with the water that we had, the limited water that we had. There's a fire hydrant. But alas, those memories our history. These photographs were taken by a gentleman who is here this evening and who will be speaking with you about it. He was only 18 years old at the time. Steve Trayon worked for the Burlington Free Press. 18 years old, took these pictures the night of the fire, and you all have the brochure. If you just back up one. This is in color on the cover of the brochure that you have. This was chosen as the fire picture that best represented the horror of the evening in question. And Steve Trayon took this photograph. The heat was so high it melted the metal post. Right there. The goddess of liberty stands in the park watching the fire, and fortunately it survived. But the buildings behind are all destroyed at the moment in this picture. And look at the flames, and look at the wind. The wind is so strong during this fire that you can see the tops of the trees being bent this way, coming this way, drawing the flames from the fire this way. And they've progressed so much so that this building is gone. This one looks like the fire started at top, but it might have, but it might not. But some of you who are here tonight who fought the fire probably know the answers to that question. I have the answer to the question as to whose fire truck is this. I'll just tell you this much without telling you the answer. It's not from Swanton. It's from one of the many fire departments that responded to the call for help. And they brought their equipment to us and parked it to help put the fire out. But look at all the hoses. And this is aftermath. This is the very next day. Anybody want to shout out who that is? There you go, Moose Para, and he's a sad person, isn't he? He lost everything, along with a lot of other folks who were in business on Merchants Row. Lost everything. That's a sad picture. This is a list of all the Swanton volunteers, members of the fire department, all the way down through. All their names are here. And the names are here, but tonight some of them are here. And I'm hoping that you meet them so that you can give them a round of applause. And some folks think it's all about Merchants Row. But remember, while you're remembering Merchants Row, also remember Swanton Lumber, because they had a tremendous loss across the river. All of this here, it doesn't look like much now. It looks just like a pile of lumber as we would expect in the lumber yard. But underneath this pile, you're going to see that there were trucks, there were front end loaders, and another lot of stuff. And John Winters is here tonight, and John climbed up into the tower of the grain elevator across the street to take this picture so that he could look down on Swanton Lumber. And John will tell you his story about the night in question.
So there's going to be a little bit of a transition where we set up the 30th and the 40th anniversary videos. They are on YouTube, and they will be accessible to the public as something that you can watch in their entirety. And that's actually something that the Historical Society wants to do with more of our programming, to set up a YouTube channel so that if you don't make some of our events, it will be available online. I'm just curious because really this event is about the memories. So I'm 44. I was not around for the fire, but as we started to put this as part of our programming, I called my dad, who's not the most social person in the world, but Dad was free and open with his memories of when he started to experience the fire. And he said that he was either coming off the interstate and you could see the glow from the interstate, or coming up Route 7 and you could see the glow from the center of town. I called my aunts. My aunts are here tonight. I'm not going to call on them, but they also let me know that they remembered some of the memories. So as we do a little bit of a transition, at this point in time, is there anybody in the crowd who would like to share a story of when you heard or when you sensed that something was going on in Merchants Row and things were getting bad? Is there anybody who'd like to share a story? Yeah.
Yeah, I was snowmobiling up by Allen Warwood on the Fairview Pond Road, there's a hill that goes up and down Fairview Pond. And we were up there and we looked at towards Swanton, almost looked like the sun was rising. It was, the flames were that big, it was a huge glow in the sky. And I just couldn't imagine what was happening. And shortly after I found out that Swanton was down. Well, that was it.
Could you give us your name, please?
Me?
Yes,
Win Perry.
thank you, Win.
Thank you.
But that's, I wasn't there to see the actual, well, it was actually see the fire. But I was downtown, I figured they had enough traffic down there without me and my snowmobile, so I stayed up on, I remember it was warm that night. It must have been in the 30s, because of the snow was melting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for breaking the ice. Is there anybody else who'd like to share the story? Go ahead. And would
Charles
you,
Martin, and I was working in Bailey's shop. And I spent the night in that elevator, hoping it wouldn't catch a fire. Because the fire was upstream, that was over in Swanton, over a block away from us. And it was kind of an exciting night. I bet.
Thank you, Charlie Martin.
Okay, I'll go on to what Charlie was saying. I'm Brian Savage. I was 14 years old, living in my parents' house, of course, on the corner of 2nd and Liberty Street. I was in bed sleeping, but my parents and my brother were just getting ready to go to bed. And my brother and my mother could smell the smoke. And everything was calm, we thought, at that point. So they went to investigate. My father goes, they go into the basement with my brother to check out. We had no smoke detectors in those days, of course. So they're going down the stairs, and their furnace, for whatever reason, it was a hot air furnace, and the end that had the fans, the metal cover, came flying off from that and hit the concrete floor. Well, that really set them, they didn't know what was going on. At this point, I was awake, and I was staggering out to the kitchen. What's going on, what's going on? And so we weren't getting answers, but then I heard the fire whistle blow. Like we all did. Now, Swanton had 2 fire whistles. There was a fire siren, and then they had a horn they would blow the more serious fires. And I don't know how the inner workings of that time, but that horn almost started blowing immediately, as well as the siren. And my brother spotted the flames leaping across the treetops. My father, who worked as manager at Bailey's, Charlie's boss, said, well, it's got to be the mill. And my mother said, no, it's not the right position. It's going to be more over this way. So my brother said, he was 19, in college. And he said, well, I'm going to go down and find out what's going on. So he did. He took my father's car down. He turned right around and came back and said what it was, that it was a fire in Paul's Hardware. It was already starting to get into Ben Franklin. So then he goes back down to the hotel. And then a few minutes later, he comes back and he says, well, I don't know. He says, but the rumor is that Swanton Lumber is on fire. But he says, I just saw Morris Bevins, who's the police chief. Hey, George Winter's down in the police. So my father said, well, I guess I better get down there. So they went down, and I don't think they drove across the bridge. I think they closed the traffic, but they walked down the hill and across the bridge and spent the night. In the meantime, I stayed at home where I was supposed to, and when your parents met and told you don't go down, you did not go down. But it certainly was a night I'll never forget. And I was asked by more than a couple of people, and I actually got up and spoke about this today on the House floor in Montpelier, briefly, just saying it was the 50th anniversary. Because the people from Newport were there, the city of Newport. And I told them, we went to bed that night thinking the next morning everything would be status quo. And we woke up with a big hole in the ground, like they're going through for different reasons in Newport. And I said, but we overcame it. It's been a struggle all these years, but nonetheless. And But, I just, that's a little bit that I remember, and so I was asked by several people over the years, were you scared? I was not scared, I was terrified. And I will say, I have never been more scared or terrified since then. And it just, just the way, from the 14-year-old not knowing what to expect. Because we were getting ready to, the possibility of evacuation of the entire building. That was, possibly was happening. My father kept calling, giving us status reports. And that was, he had made arrangements with his uncle that lived over on Liberty Street to come pick us up if we needed to get out. The thing is, we didn't know where we were going to go. But that's what I remember.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Representative Savage.
So the Historical Society, we're very happy that so many people showed up. We were going to rely on, and will rely on, a couple of you who have agreed to come up and retell some specific memories, and some of those people have done that before. But before we get to the video and before we do that, I do want to give other people the opportunity, just as the three of you were nice enough to do, to share memories, because really this is what this event is about. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Belisle.
Would you mind standing up?
I was, my dad's Richard Bernard, who was one of the first firefighters on the scene. And I was 8 years old at the time. And I remember as a little girl, it was very cold. We were freezing. We were getting ready to pack up to leave because we lived on First Street close to the fire. And anyways, then the wind shifted, so we got to stay. But I remember that night. It was very scary, and flames were going everywhere, and we were really worried about our house catching on fire.
What street did you live on?
First Street. We actually lived right across the road from the fire department, so we heard those whistles that he was mentioning. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm Richard Bernard.
This is one of the first responders, this fellow here.
I like I say, lived across the road from the fire station. I was always the first person there to answer the phone. And I'm the one that pulled the air blaster, like he was saying, when you had a major fire, we got our phone calls from the power plant, and he would say you got a bad fire or whatever. We said the village is on fire. So I laid on the air horn, opened up the door for the fire truck, and then I started putting my gear on. I was right next to Bob Russell, and Bob said, "Boy," we got a good one. I said, "Yeah, I know." So we would get on the first truck, and as we got down to the truck, I think Don was saying, at that time, he said, "We need to hook up to a hydrant." So it was Bob, myself, and somebody turned the hydrants on. We put a 2.5-inch hose on it. And when the fire was small, but the wind was blowing from the south to the north, right across from the buildings. And we got within, I want to say, 4 feet of the building. And the water, you name the water here and it'd go over there. The wind was so bad. Of course, you didn't have the fire gear they got today. You had like an old rubber coat and a helmet with no face shield. So if you get to where you get too hot, you have to put your head down. You couldn't see where it was. If your jacket got too hot, you put your hand in front of the hose to cool yourself down. But that was, it was a bad night that night. And I know we tried our best, but there's just no way. Just no way. That was it.
Thank you, Dick Menard, for the record.
Thank you.
Face this way when they speak, because we
Okay.
can't hear.
So if you are willing to share a story, when you stand up, either step forward and turn so that you can face the entire room and people can hear. I do want to get to the video, but is there anybody else who would? Yeah.
I'm Jim LaRock. I can remember that night like it was yesterday, only because I had just gone to bed, and a number of people in the house started to say, "Hey, everybody, look outside, look outside." They kind of woke me up, said, "Jim, look outside." And I looked outside the window, and there was a fair amount of snow on the ground. I mean, a few inches, enough to reflect that pink hue. And that every window I went to, that's all I could see was this pink hue. Nobody understood for the longest time what was going on. And finally, somebody said Merchants Row was on fire, and people started leaving the house and heading downtown. Well, my father was manager of Pearl's department store at the time. And I was about 17 years old, so, it was, for a teenager, that was a pretty scary time. But we went downtown, and my father and my mom watched the stores as they slowly headed towards Pearl's. And I just got to the point where, what do we do? There's just nothing we can do. And I remember my father saying, I'm gonna go in and save some papers. And he proceeded to go to the store and went in, unlocked the door, went in. He must have been in there for 10 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity. And at one point in time, my mom said, go check on your father, I'm really worried. So I ran into the store, found his office, the store was full of smoke. I asked him, Dad, are you coming out of here soon? He said, yeah, I'm almost done. And so I left the store and he followed me shortly thereafter. But it's one of the more scarier times in my life, for sure.
Thank you.
So the video and the audio that we have is good, but what we're hearing now is more important, I think. Are there others who are willing to share?
Ronnie Greeno.
Ronnie Greeno.
Yeah. I was a member of the fire department here for 39 years, but I remember this night very well. I used to like to chase fires. I always wanted to be a fireman, and like I said, I spent 39 years here. I'm sitting on Grand Avenue down by the Gorbers Road, my father's house. And upstairs, power's off, and you can see an orange glow, so downstairs I went, Dad, there's a big fire somewhere. I ain't going no far tonight, I gotta go general. I had to work the GE, and I've gotta go to work in the morning, I ain't going. So back upstairs I went, sitting, facing north. Man, the ground started to get orange, and this is down by the Gorbers Road. Man, there's gotta be something big going on. Back downstairs. Dad, I said, there's a big fire somewhere. I'm telling you, it's orange outside. All right, he says. So he gets out of bed, gets dressed. Remember, he was driving a Volkswagen. And we started down the street, Lower Grand Avenue. We got to Flatiron Park, which is, I guess it's for Veterans Memorial Park. It's going to be Flatiron Park to me. And we get to Flatiron Park and getting up by the red church on the corner. And he said, Jesus Christ, it's a square. Well, the rest is kind of history, but I want to allude on something I heard, a rumor of Pearl's department store. Is it correct your father gave all the gloves away and everything you could get out of the store?
I don't remember that, but
I heard rumors about all the mittens and stuff, he, out of the store went, the firemen had them, and Dewey Giro, coffee and donuts, all night long. So that's my memory, and the rest, I can tell you, I watched it burn. I pulled hose, I was only 16 years old, but like I say, it was quite the night. 70-mile-an-hour wind gust. Then, one thing, the next morning, when the sun came up, the wooden train ripped the roofs off in it. Is that right, Dan? And everybody thought it burned up. Of course, the wind was blowing at an angle. That couldn't happen there, but that wind was blowing so hard, it blew that roof off that bridge. That's all I got. I could go on for a couple more hours.
Thank you, Mr. Greeno. We'll wait.
So, I know Bruce was on the phone with several other fire departments. Are we lucky enough to have any members of any other fire departments? So would you mind introducing yourself?
Ray LaRush.
Ray, how are you?
Ray LaRush?
Highgate Fire Department.
Highgate?
And we got our call and we went down, we started on the south end with our trucks there, and then we moved us, I forget if we had to go around by the river, we got across, but we parked over in the Dave Foskate's yard, Boundary Building, and we were pumping from there, and we had hoses coming up the Merchants Row. We had some going to Swanton Lumber because everything was trying to catch over there. So it was a long, cold night running those little pumps.
I know it's a long time ago, but do you remember about the time that you got the call?
I don't, I was trying to remember what I was doing, but I'm not sure what I did yesterday. So.
Thank you, Heidi.
I was 19 at the time.
Their truck saved Swanton Lumber. The Highgate truck saved Swanton Lumber.
Did we have another member from a fire department? From another town's fire department?
I'm Sonny Gerald, and I had got hired by the village to work on the power company in 1968. When that fire alarm went off, I took care of 12 phones. They call them the red phone. That was our alarm system we had until they got that whistle put up on the big, Charlie Crowley. And when we drove down to that fire, Lyle Reynolds and I, and the foreman, Leonard Bellroad, Lyle grabbed a yellow stick, I grabbed a yellow stick that reaches 35 feet. Didn't have time to get the truck anywhere near that. And Mr. Bellroad ran up the stairs, over the drugstore, pounding on all them doors to make sure his mother wasn't up there. In the meantime, we're opening fuses to kill the power, because the fuses that run it were in 3 different sections. And we made it, we got the fuses open. And of course, the fire trucks were just ahead of us. They were putting water on. Yeah, that's what I did. And I stayed there and helped them. I was a fireman, but I couldn't go 2 places. Electricity was the most important part. It had to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonny Giro.
One more thing.
Yes?
Of course, we all know Don Bell was the assistant chief. Chief Levitt was sick, couldn't make the fire. But I want to mention Chief Coffey from the Salvin City Fire Department, who Don will tell you anytime was absolute help for him during that night, because he was used to block fires, which are the big brick buildings. And Reggie Austin, who was a past chief there. Of course, Reggie wasn't a chief at the time, but he would work a lieutenant, maybe a captain. But these guys from the other departments, I tell you, Don will tell you, without those guys, it'd been a lot worse.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Okay.
This is Don Bell. Give me a round of applause.
I've been on the Swanton Fire Department for 40 years. And that was one fire that we'll all remember. I remember that night, I had a garage down at the other end of the bridge. My son and I went down and took the snow off the building, off the roof. There was no fire, but I'm trying to think of the Hemingway that had one of the apartments near Bachelor's. Roy? Well, he smelled burning rubber like. And that was the only thing that might have. Then Leonard, now I can't say, in the electrical department come and cut all the big stuff that went in the buildings.
Did you think?
And then from that point on, we kept going down. The wind would blow. It was, I went just about like this. I didn't have any boots and there was none on the truck. And that's the way it is.
But you thought it was an electrical fire because of the rubber smell.
Yeah, well, he could smell this rubber burning, but it has never been proven where and how it started. Right, Charlie?
Right. So that's the only thing.
We don't know.
I was outside of my house putting the plastic back on my screen.
This is Charlie Klein.
Was out.
I had plastic on my screen on the porch and the wind blew it off and I was putting it back. And my house is right on Depot Street and I could look right up, see right up the store. And I was putting it on, all of a sudden I heard, whoo! I turned around and I looked, and where Hall's Hardware, the back end was all afire. And I went in the house, I said to my wife and the kids, there's a fire up street, I'm leaving. So I went right up street. And that's what I can remember. Tom could go with the rest, he was a chief. But I remember that very plainly. It sounded just like a thunder. And the whole back of Hall's Hardware blew right out. And the fire was from there on.
Charlie, could you briefly tell us your part in the fire when you were the first person to go across the river? Tell us what happened down the Swanton Fire.
There's the chief, Marcus Bostwick and I, he sent us over to put the truck in the river to get some water. Set the pumper up, right down the end, right down to the end of the bridge.
Marble well.
Yeah, and from there, Marcus and I were backing up to put the sucker hose in the flume. We turned around and looked, Swanton lumber was all afire. So we didn't put anything in. We jumped right back in the truck and went to the corner. On the corner of Depot Street, there's a fire hydrant. We hooked in there. We had just barely enough hose to get around to Swanton lumber. And then when we come to turn the water on, we didn't have no wrench. The hydrant wrench, they took off, but it was upstream. So, what could you do? Somebody come along, and I, to this day, I'd like to know who, but I don't remember, a young fella, and he ran like hang up to the village and got a hydrant wrench and came back. By that time, we had it all hooked up, and that's how we got some water. And I was over there practically alone for a good many hours because there was too much going on up street, and all the help was going up street. And I spent a good long time. Ted Reardon opened up the gate to let me get in between the two buildings, the office building and the main building, to see if I could keep the fire down enough that we could get some help.
Charlie, tell them what you saw when you went in the office.
When I was in the corner where I was fighting the fire, and I had my back, I was all alone. I had no help yet. And I happened to turn around and I looked, and there was a ball of fire about that big right on the corner of the cement building, which was hooked to the main office. So I turned around and I put that one out, and after that I had to keep watch because I didn't know what was going on behind me. I had nobody to help me. But I made it. I didn't save a lot, but I made it.
You got a man. Did your best.
Thank you, Charlie Klein and Don Brown, for coming.
Charlie did, they all down there to Swanton lumber. I didn't have I was on this side. I never went across. They didn't want me to go across. And that was, and I hooked up with the St. Albans chief, and we did what we could with the hoses and things. I'll get home, I'll be able to spiel out loud.
Anybody else?
Was there any lights lost in that fire?
No.
John Winters here?
Yeah, John's right here.
Right down there. Right there? You remember, John, when you wanted to go in the building to get that tow motor out of there? And I said, no, John, you better not. There's
Was it
fire
you
there."
that stopped me?
Huh?
Was it you? I was trying to remember who stopped me from opening those barn doors to get the trucks out.
I was the one.
It was you?
You don't need to be in there. There's too much fire.
Okay.
You would not get out. If you'd have went in there, you would not get out. And they can always buy another tow motor.
No, it was a brand new 10-wheeler that we just bought from Don G. Bell. It was only that far from me if I opened those doors.
Yeah, well, there was all fire in there too.
You know what Don G. Bell is, DGB stands for?
Oh, no.
Damn good boy. Okay. Well, my memory was,
This is John Winters, Swanton Lumber Company.
we just gone to bed. I lived on, across from the Riviera Hotel. There's a double tenement there, that's where we were living. And our bedroom was on the side of the, towards the river, where I could look over and see the square. And we'd just gone to bed, and the fire alarm went off. And I don't know why, but then it must have been that second alarm that was the real blaster. So I got up and looked out the window, and I could see the orange that everybody's talking about. So I got dressed and I went up street. To walk across the bridge, you couldn't stand up, you had to push yourself like that. And I was in the park right near the Lady Liberty or whatever she is. And you saw that picture of the windows blowing out at Ben Franklin's, and the fireman got away from there when that happened. And Dougie Bushy came over to me and he says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Swanton Lumber's on fire." So over the bridge I went. And like I said, then it was Charlie that I was going to open those barn doors. They were sliding barn doors because there was that 10-wheeler, there was 2 forklifts, and there were 3 trucks and 2 forklifts in there. I thought, well, we could get them out, but Charlie stopped me. But, all right. Well, thank you anyway.
You're here today because of that.
That's it. Highgate's fire truck got there and they were pumping water up the flume, and then Elbert came to help. And Bubby Irick took over as chief, who we just buried this week or last week. And maybe some of you saw the pictures in the Channel 3 News showed his burial and all the firemen that were there at his funeral. But anyway, so then my wife, we had a 1-year-old and a 2-month-old, and if she looked out any window where we lived, all she could see was fire. And like everybody was saying, we didn't know if it was going to spread all over town. So I went and took her down to her parents' farm, came back. Then we got out a pickup truck and loaded all the files and the ledgers and all that. And we tried to take our time and do it right. But the next day we were told we didn't because Elizabeth had an awful time putting it back together. But at least it didn't burn. And it was a long night, and the next day, how news traveled fast, the forklifts are both Clark forklifts, but a good salesperson from Syracuse, New York, not Syracuse, from Albany, New York, that's where the forklifts came from. There weren't any dealer in Vermont yet. They called and asked, we've seen on the news that you've had a fire. Wouldn't you like to have a forklift? We'll bring you a brand new forklift for you to use. What weight forklift do you know? And I told him 6,000 pounds. But about 3 or 4 hours later, there was that forklift. Well, what do you think we bought for forklift after that? It was high standard. So anyway, that's pretty much everything that went on. It was a long night and scary. But
due to Highgate, and Stock, and Alberg, and well, they had help from New York State too.
Canada
And
too.
Charlie, and I don't know if Canada
Yeah,
got
Canada,
that.
Phillipsburg
They
was
came
there.
across that way?
Yes,
Bedford.
Phillipsburg and Bedford.
Bedford, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I can't remember they got that side of the river. I was a gopher. Well, Charlie, I was all day long trying to remember who the hell wouldn't let me in that building.
Thank you, John.
Are there others who are willing to share?
We'll go after
You sure?
Yeah, Steve and I'll do that. I just.
One over here, Jason.
Go ahead. Who wanted?
Saw him. Hand went down.
Give us a sec to set the microphone back up.
You used to tell us that all the time.
I know. I remember.
That's after the fire right there, that bridge.
Annihilation. The alarm spread to firemen as far south as Middlesex, Vermont, as far west as Plattsburgh, New York, as far north as Phillipsburg, Quebec, Canada, and as far west as Bridgeford. As the 50-mile-an-hour winds whipped the blazing inferno through Swanton, it appeared that the whole village was in danger. As the hours passed, newsmen from throughout the eastern United States and Canada began to arrive in Swanton. The first newsman in the world on the scene was WWSR News Director John Schaefer, who wandered through the blazing disaster area with a portable tape recorder.
Here was one of the first photographs taken that night by Steve Trayon, showing the intensity of the blowout of the window at Hall Hardware, home of Moose Parra's antique and used furniture shop. This photograph in color forms the background for the cover of The Fire on Merchants Row, that booklet that was especially prepared in commemoration of the event. Now looking towards Merchants Row from the north end of the park, notice the wind in the trees in the upper left-hand corner, how much the trees are bending from the wind, and the deep snow blanketing the ground. At this point, most of Merchants Row is gone, and the fire is out of control. Here's another eerie scene from the park, showing one of the buildings exploding, with the debris flying through the air. You can see the pieces of timbers flying through the air to the right. Again, notice the wind, the trees. And see the goddess of liberty, who's is standing just so proudly at the head of the green, our Civil War monument, who survives to this day. Now here the fire has progressed as far as Taylor Marine, having already destroyed the Ben Franklin store, Bushy's Clothing, and the B&L gift shop, among others. Now here in front of Taylor Marine, notice the spectators looking in awe over towards the bank on the right and the York Manufacturing Company, probably wondering when, where, and if those flames will ever stop their crazy journey. Another view of the devastation from the park. At this point, all of Merchants Row is engulfed. The flames advance and consume Swanton Rexall drugs. Looking down Gristmill Hill from in front of Pearls, here the fire took a tremendous leap across the street to consume Art LeDoux's apartment building. Get some idea from this still photograph the power of the wind and those windswept flames making their way across the street. Now, as the fire advances along and through the LeDoux building, the firemen place streams of water on the Chittenden Trust Company, eventually saving it from ruin. But such was not to be the fate of the York Manufacturing Company, the Tocklahunga Club. It's already started its demise. Flames can be seen in the fan-shaped window in the attic, and flames have broken through under the eaves on the right-hand side of the picture. And notice the wind-borne firebrands in the sky, streaking across on the wind. There's no saving the York Manufacturing Tocklahunga Club now. It's gone. And speaking of the Art LeDoux residence apartment building, here the fire starts to burn from the top down. You can see that the water pressure is low. The firemen can only train their hoses on the Hakey apartment building next door in hopes of saving it. And eventually, they did.
Which is on the other side of the street where the fire started. That is now ablaze now too. Another part of downtown Swanton is going up in flames. The York Manufacturing Company, which is right next to the Swanton Civic Auditorium. And it's also right next to Proudy's Market. And we talked to Mr. Proudy earlier, and he of course is quite busy now trying to water down his store because his store, Proudy's Market, seems to be the next in line of the advancing fire. Those reports are going to be sporadic as we try to move around with the fire. And there's other mass confusion here in Swanton tonight. Right now, trying to talk with village manager Armin Clark. He is helping right now directing the Swanton Village Electric Light Department truck with their hose trying to get firemen up to the roof of the York Manufacturing Company, which is currently burning. The B&L gift shop is now gone. There's absolutely no hope for it at all. It's completely up in flames. Boucher Clothing is the next door, and then Taylor Marine. And firemen have recruited. Apparently they have given up trying to stop the flames on the main block because they're spreading. They're spreading to another side of the street right now. The power is beginning, what you hear in the parking lot fell over, but there was many things that still, still happening. I noticed that we're concentrating, we do have work from down in the sparks and the flames are just getting very intense, and we're just moving out of the way. What the gentleman was trying to explain to us was that there's some concrete tanks buried in the basement of one of the end buildings here, which is already burned to the ground. And Myra and Vern were trying to do their best to see if they can clean down that part of the building before the military tanks explode. The Bushel Holding and B&L gift shop building, over one building, is now completely gutted by fire. Firemen have just got retreated from the Hills Business Center. Apparently, they feel that they just can't do anything about it. They don't have the pressure from the soils. We just moved back again from some of the flying sparks here. Apparently, they feel they don't have pressure in the homes to try to do anything about it. The wind is just astronomical. You just wouldn't believe it. Morning, do you find any idea where the fire started? As far as I was going, it started from the third block, that's all I know. Are they abandoning the block right now? They are. I'm going to say this other one from the back. We've got Virgin St. Albans on the back side fighting that one.
This is Aaron Croft talking.
Croft, village manager here in Swanton, talking to WWSR News audience. Norman is currently moving around in various spots of the to direct the firefighting apparatus. Apparently I was wrong. They haven't given up on trying to save the Taylor Marine portion and the Swanton Vermont. What they have done is decided that they can probably find it better from the rear rather than the front. This way they'll have the wind blowing the stream of water from the hose into the building rather than away as it's going up.
So, those are some of the images and some of the audio that we have from that night. I'm gonna move forward a little bit to some of the pictures that we're taking the day after. And you'll hear Ron narrating a little bit in the background. But these will show a clearer image and perhaps remind many of us what they saw when the morning of the 29th came around.
Standing in the rubble of his apartment house behind the Chittenden Trust Company building the following morning. You can just imagine the bewilderment. Everything you have is on the ground around you. And the once magnificent Ferris House, Oklahoma Club, York Manufacturing, reduced to smoldering ruins. Another view of the same. You see how close it is to the memorial building, which survived, but now with a lot of effort, a lot of firemen, both on the ground and on the roof. And here's the fireman leaning up against John Bell's truck in the street, probably figuring out what to do next. And this has got to be one of the saddest pictures in our collection. Arnold Moose Parra standing at the threshold of his former used furniture and antique store, nothing but a cellar hole, the origin of the fire on the previous night, all of his work, savings up in smoke, no insurance, no hope. And as fortunate, or as unfortunate as Moose Parra was and the other people on the block, Art Cotmore's mobile home survived the Holocaust. It was only a few yards from the building, bachelor block, behind it, but it was on the right side of those ferocious winds. Mobile home stands, some damage, but capable of future use. And here's our acting chief, Don Bell, and his men walking down the street. Looks like John Barrett, John Giroux, Doug Bushy, and some others perhaps you can recognize. I'm not sure, but it looks like Frank DePrato in the background with a fur collar, maybe? Frank Cavazos with a fur hat. Most of the onlookers have their hands in their pockets. I think that's a sign of dismay, not a sign of inactivity. I mean, what do you do at this point? This formed the basis for the photograph of the beleaguered fireman, Doug Bushy, which was later turned into a painting. And if someone would bring that out so that we can appreciate it, Doug Bushy's painting is here somewhere. It was not a fancy building, it was very utilitarian, made out of stone rubble. No fancy trims or details. Now here's a new temporary Swanton drugstore set up in the former village dinette the day after the fire. It didn't waste any time. The building was there, it was available, it was going to be demolished in the spring to make room for the new Chittenden Trust Company building. So Swanton Drugs set up those quarters. Here we see Bruce Spalding, young pharmacist, typing from some of his salvaged prescription files. A number of Swanton youngsters had helped save those prescription files the previous evening during the height of the fire. And I believe they were taken across the street into the basement of the bank to be kept in safe storage in the walk-in vault. Bruce.
You want the mic?
No.
So, we're about out at an hour and 15, and we don't want to go too long. We do have more video and audio prep, but I think it's best to interrupt that. We're going to invite Mr. Spalding to say a couple words, and if there is still anybody else who would like to share your memories, please take the opportunity after Mr. Spalding, and I think maybe one or two other people might speak.
I had to write a speech.
No, you want to read it from?
I can't have a glass.
I don't want to hold you up. I really sincerely, as a member of the Historical Society, appreciate your attendance. I'm overwhelmed. I mean that from my heart. This is unbelievable. I figured we had planned on 50 to 75 people, but I don't want to run the program today. And I apologize to people who had to sit. I'm going to be brief. That's going to be hard for me to do. When I was in college, first of all, I'd like to recognize my great nephew who's carrying on my tradition, Troy Spalding. I see my brother, and it breaks my heart. But we had a great ride. My brother and I worked 52 years together. I'll never forget him. He made me who I am. Between him and his wife, Julie, and my wife, Cheryl, that's how I became a part of them. I was in college, and the professor called me. I was in the back of the room about probably where Neil Spear is. No, it's not Neil Spear's over there. I saw the orange coat. He said, Mr. Spalding, I never got called on because I never offered any information because I didn't have the answer. My brothers did. He said, you got two brothers who went here, both A students, and I was a BC student. He said, you've got two problems, Bruce. You got diarrhea of the mouth and constipation of the mind. That's led to me all my whole life. But anyway, that's enough of me. I want this to, first of all, I'd like to read a letter, the quick letter that Doug Bushy sent to us. Doug Bushy, that's Doug Bushy right there in that picture. Doug's a great man. He's one of the best firemen, and we had a lot of good firemen. Well, another one that the only person that was not able to come tonight was Terry Amelot. And I really wanted Harley to be here because he was another great farmer and did a lot of things for Swanton. There's probably other people, I hate to mention names, I just mentioned people who are in the ninth
decade, you know, the ninth decade. Anyway, not pushing. This is the night of Swanton Burn. From the best of my recollections, I had just gotten home from a night class in Burlington. Just gotten into bed when the alarm went off in my cellar. On my way to the fire station, I came off Linda Avenue and looked to my right. Before pulling onto Canada Street, I could see that downtown was all aglow. We arrived at the scene with the fire trucks, and I knew we were in trouble because the winds were so strong. The winds just walked across the fire from one store to the next. That's exactly what happened. The winds picked up the embers and they circled them in the square, landing on our ears and our faces. This is a fireman. You got that, right? Okay. There was just no way of stopping it. It didn't take long for the other fire departments from neighboring towns to arrive to try to help us control the fire. Departments from Albert, Rouse's Point, St. Albans, Georgia, Highgate, Phillipsburg, and so on. And others came to help us battle the blaze. One of the things that sticks in my mind was up the battle of the blaze, battling the blaze. Mistyping is not my mispronunciation. No, it is my mispronunciation. Sorry, Doug. Don't tell him, sister, okay? Bernard put 3 or 4 of us in the bucket and raised us up so we could fight the fire from above, which resulted in saving the old bakery. It was just unbelievable that the fire started in the old Hall's hardware store, worked its way south to the end of the block, and at the same time was heading towards us north, jumping roadway between the stores. It worked its way down the rest of the block to the bottom of the hill towards the river. I remember the Alberta Fire Department stayed on the other side of the river to fight the fire at Swan Lumber. I believe some of the plywood the Alberta Fire Department was able to save from Swan Lumber went into the building of the new Alberta Fire Department. I also remember that the Rouse's Point Fire Department stayed on the bridge, used the bigger trucks to pump water out of the river into the village, as there wasn't enough fire hydrants in Swanton to handle the fire. I was impressed how well all the fire departments who came to help us gel together. No matter what fire department you came from, everyone just jumped in and helped. The hose lines needed an extra body, there was a man there. It wasn't only the firemen who helped, the civilian volunteers as well, as they jumped in and helped us move the heavy lines, because after several hours battling the fire, those hoses got mighty heavy. When it got daylight, we could see the outcome of the fire was devastation. There was nothing left in the business district in Swanton. If it weren't for the Swanton Fire Department and all the other fire departments who came to help, the outcome of the fire would have been far worse than it was. The village of Swanton should be very grateful to all the firefighters who came to our aid, because without them, outcome in Swanton Village would have been a lot worse. Well said. Okay, I want to ask some first of all, Mark Poisson. Mark Poisson is the one who called my brother. And my brother came and got me. It was about a little after 11 at night. Right, Judy? A little after 11 at night. He come and got me and we went down. What we did for the first half hour, we stood by Howard Eldridge's garage and stood on the corner by the telephone booth and prayed that wasn't going to jump. It wasn't going to jump across the alleyway. We didn't think it would. Well, we got to it. When it got going into Swanton Fire and almost the alleyway, we decided we had to do something. So, if as a pharmacist, we have to have, in those days, we have to have the little books. Remember, you bring your prescription in, we punch them, put them in a book, and they're in a book. And when you fill a prescription, you stamp the back. We had to have those books in order to fill prescriptions. So what we did, we had a lot of people help us, but the 4 people I remember that helped us the most. We had 4, they were young men then, and they're still young men to me. Anyway, that was Michael Delaney. One of them wasn't a young man, I think, but Richard Foster, Stephen Tran, that was Amy Tran. Somebody asked me the other day, what's Stephen going to say? I said, who's Stephen? He's Amy Tran to me, always will be, a great man. And the fourth one was to make a moment of silence, just 10 seconds for Norman Jetty. He helped me. Norman just passed away. And I'd like just give us 5 seconds for Norman Jetty. He was a great man, and he helped me a lot. Okay, what we did, I got notes here, so I won't forget anything. I'm a forgetful person. I just want to say brief stuff, and I don't want to take too long. What we did, we carried those prescription files across the road to Bob Horton's office, and we left them in there. And while the next day, while we were away, we went to Burlington. My brother and I, and my older brother came up from Boston. He was a doctor, but he's also a pharmacist. And we went to Burlington Drug Company. Somebody saw that post on the website. And Burlington Drug, it seems unbelievable. They let us go into their plant and we pulled several $1,000s worth of merchandise off the shelves.
And we inventoried it, we got back, gave them whatever, how that worked out. But then we probably took something we didn't pay for possibly, I hope we didn't. But they just gave us carte blanche use of their facility. That's the Mitigate family, who Tom McGuire's wife, you want to thank her someday what they did for the Spalding family. Tom McGuire's wife was a Mitigate. So they let us do that, and Bernie Dusso. Everybody remember Bernie Dusso? He had that little where the bank is now, little restaurant.
Riviera Dinette.
Dinette. What is it called? Billy? That wasn't a beer place, was it, John? I didn't know the name if it was, they didn't serve beer.
There was a round table then. If you drank there, you were a knight of the round table.
Knights of the round table, that's it. Steve Bourgeois was one of those knights. Anyway, he got out of his hospital bed. Bernie got out of his hospital bed and came to Swanton to talk to my brother and said we could use this business to put our material in there. And the only two people I remember for sure, Beauty, if you remember, and I'm not completely right, Frank Belrose and Jerry Lamphere. They went in and redid that building. We went to Vermont, we got back the next day after the fire at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, we filled our first prescription. Someone needed a prescription, fill it that day. It seems unbelievable. Well, that was what kind of support we got. That was how people did things for us and how I thank my mother every day for dropping me in Vermont, and I thank my brother for bringing me here. Because this is where the action is right here. I know most of you people personally in this room, and I love every one of you. And you guys have just been fantastic to our family. And this was quite a ride for all of us. And it was just, like today, I figured 50 people. We've got over 120, 130 here. This shows how much you love your community and love the people here. And I'm going to tell you just a couple quick stories. Some of you have heard them before, maybe you haven't, but anyway, I'm going to tell them again. It's something that you don't believe would happen. And so it happened in Swanton Vermont to me. Orrin Batchelor, everybody remember Orrin Batchelor? We called him OB. Yeah. 2 or 3 days after the fire, and I'll tell you another man who's a lot of credit he hasn't been mentioned here tonight. I don't want to mention everybody because I can't remember all of them. I'm going to forget somebody. Arthur Spear. Arthur Spear did more for this community, and after this fire than you can even understand. He didn't take any credit, but he did. He did a lot of things in this community that didn't get credit for. I can tell you some other stories, but I won't do that to you because his son's here and I want to embarrass him. There's nothing bad. It's all absolutely great things. Anyway,
You don't want me to embarrass you either.
But just don't tell that story. Well, can I embarrass you, Lori? Look at it, she'll put something in front of her face. Anyway, I want you to just listen to this story. After the fire, about 4 days, Arthur and we had meetings. We had meetings with the various merchants, okay? And our Spear runs the meetings. And just briefly, he get us SBA loan at 3%, he get us a Chittenden loan at 6%, and the regular rate that time was 9.5%. Well, Orrin Batchelor, I saw Batch. Batch came in my store almost every day. He'd look up at me and say, "Hey, Spalding, you gonna melt in today?" He knew I wasn't going on the way he asked me. But anyway, I shook that man's hand and gave him a $10 bill. And I bought the Bachelor block with a $10 bill and a handshake. The only reason I'm saying it again because some people here didn't know that. I know you said, he said that last year, 10 years ago, when he said something different. That means a lot to me. 3 or 4 or 5 days later, we had a meeting, and somebody offered Orrin Batchelor, I think they said $10,000 or $15,000 more. Can you imagine that? And he said, "No, the Spalding boys with a handshake, $10. Try that today. That's a true story. That's an absolute true story to my heart. And Orrin Batchelor was all those pictures that he had. I love those pictures. And he got a lot of them from some of you people. Anybody in the room that had to give Orrin Batchelor pictures to copy for that? Judy did. You some of the other, because you went to everybody's house. He brought the pictures in, had them copied. I wasn't very good at game. I quit playing poker when I was about 15 because I got beat all the time. He'd come in and flip a coin. He said, match me for it. Well, my brother and I were lost. But I don't care because the pictures are in the historical study. I'm not saying that because we did it. I'm just saying that's how close Batch was. One other quick story. My brother and I and the 4 people, Stevie, Amy, Tran. Amy, Steve, Tran, A.S. Tran, I don't know what it is. We carried the things across the street. One of the things my brother had was a money bag in his back pocket. I think everybody asked me how much, it doesn't matter, it was several $100s. It was out of the 2 cash registers. Probably 200 or 300. That fell in my brother's pocket, got on the ground, and the fire hoses washed it down to the bridge.
and we lost it. But guess what happened one next day? Hey, I don't know, we showed you, I don't think, Judy, do you remember who it was? My brother and I were always disappointed we didn't keep track who it was. Somebody came back and handed out bank bag back to my brother, which meant a lot to me. Because that just shows you the heart of this community. Two other people, I thought, have I my time up, Ron?
You're fine.
Two other people in this room I want to recognize that were very touched with that fire is Donald and Earl Taylor. They're in the back of the room. Those two boys are 92 years old, and they can get He's the outgoing president, he's the incoming president, I'm just a ding-a-ling, but Don, you or Earl want to say anything? Would you like to say anything, Earl? Don?
What's that?
Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, that reminds me of a story. Arthur Spear. Neil, am I right or wrong? You raise, give me a thumbs up if I'm right, give me a thumbs down if I'm wrong.
What do you say?
Arthur Spear. Oh, you want to say something? Get the mic. Get the mic.
I didn't dare to say anything before because
Yeah, good.
I can't hardly see, I can't hardly hear, I can't read or write, I have a hard time standing. But I'll tell about the fire. When we first noticed the fire was going, we were going to call the war. We weren't, we ran down. The fire was about, well, we're celebrating sporting goods in case you people don't know. We had bought this building, we were repairing it. All the front was done. All we had left to do inside was get the cabinets and stuff. That's what I mean, I forget sometimes. And door fire was put away from us, almost where it started. When we got there, the fire was from the south at 60-mile-an-hour wind, and all the flames were in the front. There was no fire whatsoever back of the store. You could stand right there and cook Wheaties or anything you wanted to do. We stood there and watched that fire come. One store at a time. They got to the alleyway. All the buildings were stone, brick, whatever it was. With a fire break up at the top, it was down in the old days for a fire, so they won't go on the roof. Didn't bother that fire a bit. Come right down through the alleyway, come down to the store next to us. You think the fire started from the back? No. All that new front we put on, the flame reached to the front of the window, broke the windows, then come in from the window from the front. We're all still standing in the back. That wind and flame was so strong, that's why I burned all the hoses down the road and everything else. We had the water, pressure of the water. What away, finally got to our store, but after a while, it all went. And Harriet's hardware store was down the hill. After us was Pearl. Down the hill was all the bad buildings. We thought they were all wood. Pearl, the department came, the fire department. They went down the other way, down the Beaver Road, and come down across the river. They come up to it, stopped the pumper into the river, saved all them old buildings. Which we were hoping they'd burn too, but they didn't.
You can't fix it.
Yeah, we're proud here, we're fun. All the time, we've been here all our life. It's got 2 years. You don't even know what that 2 years are. We were in World War II. I was in the Pacific. I was a destroyer. And all that time, my twin brother and I, we were always together. Yep. Thank the Lord, we still are today.
Hey, Donald.
Yeah.
You take your Jeep over by the
Wait a minute, now, I said I can hardly hear.
Right here. Over there. Donald, did you tip your Jeep over by the golf course? Your Scout?
Your Scout, you flipped it.
Did you flip your Jeep over?
It was a scout.
Yeah, it turned out for what we were.
Scout's not a Jeep.
Of course, the feeling was only about 50, and I was doing about 60 my little scouts, as fast as we could go. We're international scouts. They went down the interstate, my father, Kenny, and Earl, I went down 7. We're out of Golf Course Hill. Drifted. Where we were going. And drifted over there off the road, over the field, and hit me over my side. When I hung on pretty good, so I didn't get hurt, just a little bit on my side. And then, next morning, 3-4 guys, we went down there and said, we'll go down and get the shell. We rolled it over, checked it all, we shot it, so gone. Hops for after for doing that.
Thank you, Don. Two more things for me. I'll move this forward. I apologize if you guys are standing, I feel bad for it. Did I tell you about what Art Sperry was telling me every time you come in the store? I said, how you doing today, Art? I started to, didn't I, Neil? You forgot to remind me. He said, I'm good, I'm above the sod. That was Art Sperry. Okay, one other thing I'd like to mention, I gotta get permission, was a lady who, I was in her bedroom, we're raising around, if it's okay to talk about that? Can I talk about that? Okay. What do you mean? But before I do, I'd like to mention my great sister-in-law, who did a really nice job on an article that she put in the Swanton history book about the Swanton after the fire, right, Judy? And she's been like a mother to me.
Oh my God!
I got everything except for the milk. I'm gonna tell you, that lady right there, there's a lot to look at me. It wasn't bad enough she had my brother, because he was a good guy. But I was off the edge, and she did all my laundry and all my cleaning. I come home I started coming, we bought the store, Dexter bought the store in Judy in 1962, and I came home from college. And I spent college with her, and just for all my laundry came every week or 2 weeks when I came home. She did it. She took care of me like a son.
Yeah, that's true.
I owe her a lot, and I've told her that before, but I haven't told her that in public places like this. And my wife, I don't know how she felt me. Anyway, I got a surprise for you. I've told you when they first got here, and if anybody hasn't signed a piece of paper, the boys, where's my high school boys? Oh, by the way, when I walked through this door, I got the biggest thrill I've got all night. Because I just made a notice to the MVU that we're having some history here tonight, and 3 young men came in here, and I met them. They still hear them, the boys. Come in here, you guys. Come in here. Those 3 boys, that's the biggest thrill I've had tonight. When I come through that door, that means we got kids that are going to learn something, going to be better for our society. He's here too, another MVU. That means a lot to me for those boys to be there. Out in the cemetery last fall, and I planned on cleaning 5 veteran stones. Those guys cleaned 17 for me. Wow. 2 of those boys were part of it. They're going to do it on their own. I'm so proud of these boys at MVU, and we all should be. Okay, I got to tell you one more story. The box that went around the room, I want you to do me one more thing, gentlemen from MVU. Anybody raise their hands that hasn't put their name in this box and their telephone number, do it before you leave. We're going to draw 11 names out of that box. Okay, and I'm going to tell the story. She said I could. I went to a lady's house the other night, and I asked her if I could have something. And she said, sure, if you come in my bedroom. Now, I'm 77 years old, and my carriage is coming almost to a stop. I gotta tell you who it is. It's Lorraine Corbier. Lorraine asked me to do that, and I'm gonna spill the beans what this is. 11 of you people, thanks to her generosity, are gonna walk out of here tonight with a 50-year-old original 45 copy of the record. Empress Gold on Merchant's Gold, thanks to Lorraine Corbier. Tickets and the pencils around the room. I'm all done. I appreciate you being here. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
to finish up, we have one more planned speaker. I want to give Mr. Tran a chance to come up. He's the one who took a lot of the photos the night that the fire hit. And thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. It was a tough act to follow.
I'm glad they saved the best for last. You are.
I'm glad to see that you all got this book. I read quick history about this book. After fire, myself and Dick Gaggio and Ant Foreman, who was a reporter for the Courier, we all got together and decided we're going to put this book together and try to make some money. Well, we didn't make any money. 50 years later, we still got plenty to hand out. So, anyway, yeah, that particular night, I was a total photographer for the Free Press, and flew the big air whistle, I knew there was a serious fire. Of course, we lived only 5 houses from Merchants Row or Canada Street. And I got up, went right down there with my camera and started taking pictures. And yes, I did help Bruce and Dexter Spalding take the subscriptions out, but in the process,
Steve, here's the mic.
I filmed my camera. I couldn't get film out. Microphone.
They just stopped.
In the process of taking pictures that night, I broke the film in my camera. I rolled my own film, and the film came off the spool, and I needed a perfectly black, dark spot to take the film out of my camera. Arthur Spear put me in the vault of the bank. Closed the vault door. I took my film out, replaced it, bound it on the door. He opened the vault back up, and I came back out. And now we were able to preserve all those pictures. I've had those negatives for about 50 years now, of course, and I just gave them to Bruce tonight for the Historic Society to have them. There's no sense in them rotting in my house, so.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. It was a very frightening night. We thought sure the fire was going to come right down Canada Street. And my sister Carmen, who's over here in the middle, was in charge of the house. My parents were away. And we were looking around to see what we were going to have to take out of the house, what we should try to save. We had 2 horses in the barn. My older brother showed up and decided we were going to let the horses go free. But then we decided, no, that wouldn't be a good idea because horses tend to run right back into a barn. And so we were going to try to blindfold them and get them out. As it turned out, the fire did not come down Canada Street, thank God for that. Anyway, I want to tell you real quick, and then a real quick love story that occurred that night. My brother, Dick, had an au pair from Canada that was taking care of his children, and the power went out, as it did most of Swanton, on the Beebe Road, and so the babysitter and the 3 boys came to our house, and I've been trying to work up some courage to talk to this young lady. And as it turned out, there were 2 fire departments that came from Quebec, so that gave me an opportunity to go over and talk to her and say, there were 2 fire trucks, 2 fire departments that came from Quebec to help us out with this fire. Well, that was the first time I talked to her, and now, well, we've been married almost 48 years. Anyway, if you don't have a copy of this book, I have extras, and we're happy to give them away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Everybody got their name in on this drawing? Anybody need a paper? Good, all right. I'm gonna get this over with. Tomorrow. I can't go back to her when there was a wrong One more thing, I'd like to recognize 2 more. I got one more thing, quick, I can talk. Bob Mott, in the back, he's responsible for a lot of these pictures down here. If you see the red folders, I did something a little different. I added 2, if you want to look at those, if you can't do them now, come to my house, you can do it. I got pictures in there of the Merchants Row that burned down where Gilboa Hardware was. I got also at that same time in January 28, 1970, a fire was in Swanton, Ohio. The exact same color. Remember that?
Yeah.
There's pictures in that, one of those folders on that. And the other one's got pictures of the fire. There's 5 folders there, but Bob Mott, I want to recognize him, he helped me a lot. Bob Mott, that's his big book, it's that thick. He's got a newspaper article on every fire he's ever thought. 30 years, Bob? 30 years of fires in that box, if you want to look at it. You haven't got time tonight, I bet you could. I don't know if she'll let her in her bedroom, but I never asked her. But he's got such a nice beard and mustache, so I could kiss him too, probably. Anyway, we're going to put these in the box. I've said enough. I'm going to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Get those in first. Here, there's 2 more. Just hold them up and we're going to do the drawing. I apologize to keep you here, but this is for the love of people who win. It's going to be worth it. The rest of you, I'm sorry about it.
So, while we're waiting for the guys to finish up folding those up, I want to thank the village for hosting.
I guess,
Sorry, the teacher just came out. I want to thank the village, Reg, again, thanks for setting everything up. After we're done, and after the drawing takes place, the fire department is going to open the doors, open the bays, and basically the building will be open for people to take a look at the equipment that the fire department has today.
I just have one thing.
Sure.
This picture, this book, the very first time walking to my house, running to my house to the fire, and this is the corner, you can barely see it, but you saw it on the other picture. This is the first fire truck arriving into the village, into the center.
Oh, yeah.
Was that really across the square?
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, the first fire truck is coming into it right here. Yeah.
Who's running?
Here comes 11 on.
I do. You're that old. I know, that's the original.
You don't have to come up front, I'll be standing by the door. I trust you. 11 to tell me who you are. Jennifer Thera.
Hey!
Stay right there, I'll get by the door, Jennifer. Let's go. 1 down, 10 to go, you never lose, you always win. Sandra Renadette. Well, this is fun. Isn't this fun? Yeah. I love it. Hey, Maureen, this is unbelievable. This puts the cap on the night for me. Gail Hoy. You see her name? No, I'm just kidding. She just put her number in. I'll take her number. Richard Wyman. Richard here? Yep. Stay right there, Richard. I'm going to get by the door. And as I go out, I trust you to tell me who you are. And I trust you to get to Stephen Bourgeois. Another good man in this community has done a lot for Swanton, but I wouldn't have enough time to tell you all I think about Steve Bourgeois. Diane Rock. How many more have I got to have? Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, come 11. This is 7. John Crapo. 4 more. 7, 8, 9,
10,
12. Oh, 11. Okay. All right, I got them in my hand. Terry O'Shea. And let's see. Cheryl, no, that's not my wife. Stephen Dexter. What a nice thing to be able to give that to Stephen Dexter on a night like tonight. Eric Kilburn, can you believe? Where's Eric?
in the corner.
Eric! I think I know you. That's an example of what Swanton MVU did to Swanton.
You didn't graduate from MVU.
Well, okay, I apologize, Mary. It's what Swanton did for him.
Oh, he did? Okay.
And the last person?
He did MVU.
393-9922. Whose phone number is that? The photographer, Greg, from the County Courier. Does a great job.
Thank you, everybody. Hold on, just a minute.
So Sandy Kilburn has one, Vanessa?
Just to think of that. Here we all are gathered together. And it only took them 9 months to build that back up again. And for the first anniversary, we were living, we had just come back from Texas, we were living up over next to the store. In that apartment. So the announcement I wanted to make is February 3rd, it's on a Monday at 5:30 in the school. We're having a Swanton Enhancement to Visit celebration, and everyone is invited. It was 5 years ago when World Development came and did this for our community visit. Can't hear you.
On February 3rd, the Swanton Community Development is having their meetings. It's Monday, and I think Sandy's trying to make sure that people are invited.
Well,
and
it's more than a meeting, it's a 5th anniversary celebration. There's going to be food, and rural development is going to be back to find out what people would like our next 5 years to focus on.
One last thing. If you did not share your memories tonight, please consider coming forward and talking to somebody from the Historical Society. We would love to get that oral history down.
Right, I see you.
Thank you for coming. The fire department definitely wants you to stop by.
Just one more thing, the fire department celebrated 130 years this year.
By the way, before you go, Eric Kilburn did graduate that video, and I thought he did. Don't